Ul's tendrils twitched nervously as he stared at the rapidly blinking warning lights on the control panel of the merchant ship Stellar Winds. The soft bioluminescent glow that usually emanated from his gelatinous body had dimmed to a dull flicker, reflecting his growing anxiety. "Gloop, what's the status of the quantum drive?" Alof burbled, his voice resonating through the ship's atmosphere of nutrient-rich fluid. Gloop, the ship's engineer, oozed her way across the bridge, leaving a glistening trail behind her. "Not good, Captain. The drive's crystalline matrix has completely shattered. We're dead in the void." Ul's body rippled with concern. The Stellar Winds was a modest vessel, designed for short cargo runs between the closely packed worlds of the Hollup Confederacy. They had pushed their luck taking on this long-haul contract, lured by the promise of hefty profits. Now, stranded in uncharted space between spiral arms, those profits seemed like a distant dream. "Sploof, any luck with the distress beacon?" Alof asked, turning his eye stalks towards the communications officer. Sploof's tendrils drooped despondently. "Negative, Captain. Our signal's too weak to reach any Hollup outposts. We're too far off the standard trade routes." A heavy silence settled over the bridge, broken only by the gentle sloshing of the life-sustaining fluid that filled the ship. The crew of 5 HUPs exchanged worried glances, their translucent bodies reflecting the dim emergency lighting. "What about our life support systems?" Alu asked, dreading the answer. Gluck consulted her datapad, her inner organs visibly churning with stress. "At current consumption rates, we have about 3 standard cycles before our nutrient fluid becomes too toxic to sustain us." Alu felt a wave of despair wash over him. 3 cycles, not nearly enough time for a rescue mission to reach them, even if anyone knew they were out here. He looked at his crew, at the fear evident in the way their bodies pulsated erratically. He had led them into this situation, he had to find a way out. "All right," Alof said, forcing confidence into his voice. "Sploof, start cycling through all known emergency frequencies, even the old ones. Gloop, see if you can rig up some kind of signal booster using non-essential systems. Floop and Droop, start inventorying our supplies. Maybe we can stretch our resources further than we think." As the crew sprang into action, Alu retreated to his private quarters. Once alone, he allowed his body to lose cohesion slightly, spreading out in a gesture of utter exhaustion and worry. On his datapad, he pulled up an image of his spawning pool back home, with dozens of tiny HUPs floating peacefully, his offspring, waiting for his return. He had to find a way back to them. Hours passed, each moment bringing them closer to their doom. The mood on the bridge grew increasingly desperate as every attempt to boost their signal or extend their supplies met with failure. Just as Alof was about to give up hope, Sploof's voice cut through the gloom, tinged with excitement. "Captain, I found something." Alof rushed to the communication station, his body leaving a wake in the ship's fluid. "What is it, Sploof?" "It's an old frequency, ancient really. I almost missed it, but it's still active, and our signal might just be strong enough to reach it." Alu felt a glimmer of hope. "Do it. Send the call for help. At this point, we have nothing to lose." Sploof's tendrils danced over the console, composing and sending their desperate plea into the void. The message was simple: coordinates, the nature of their emergency, a plea for assistance in any form. As the signal pulsed out into space, Alu addressed his crew, "Now we wait and we hope someone, somewhere, might just hear us." Little did Alu know that their call for help was about to be answered in a way that would challenge everything the HUPs thought they knew about the galaxy and its inhabitants. As the Stellar Winds drifted silently in the vast emptiness of space, a legend was making its way towards them, a relic of a history they had never imagined. Alu's eye stalks drooped with exhaustion as he monitored the ship's rapidly depleting life support systems. It had been nearly 2 cycles since they'd sent out their desperate plea for help, and hope was fading fast. Suddenly, Floop's voice cut through the gloomy silence. "Captain, I'm detecting something on long-range sensors." Alu's body rippled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What is it, Floop?" "A ship." Floop's tendrils danced frantically over the sensor controls. "I'm not sure, Captain. It's massive, far larger than any ship I've ever seen, and it's approaching fast. The crew gathered around the view screen, their gelatinous bodies quivering with anticipation. At first, they saw nothing but the star-speckled void. Then, gradually, a shape began to emerge. By the great spawning pool, Gloop whispered, her voice filled with awe. What they saw defied comprehension. It wasn't just a ship, it was a behemoth, a celestial body in its own right. As it drew closer, they could make out details, massive gun emplacements larger than entire hull-up cities, vast hangars that could swallow fleets, and engines that glowed like small suns. It's the size of a small moon, Sploof said, his voice barely audible. Alaf felt a wave of fear wash over him. Had they inadvertently summoned some ancient world-destroying weapon? But before he could voice his concerns, the communications panel lit up. Unknown vessel, this is the TSS Lexington responding to your distress call. Do you read us? The voice was unlike anything the Hubs had ever heard, resonating strangely in their fluid-filled environment. Alu hesitated for a moment before responding. This is Captain Alaf of the merchant vessel Stellar Winds. We read you, TSS Lexington. We're in dire need of assistance. There was a pause, then the voice returned, somehow both authoritative and friendly. Understood, Captain Alaf. Prepare for emergency teleportation. We're bringing you and your crew aboard. Before the Hubs could react, they felt a strange tingling sensation. In a flash of light, they found themselves no longer on their familiar bridge, but in a vast, cavernous space filled with strange bipedal creatures. Ul's body instinctively contracted into a defensive ball, his tendrils pulling close around him. His crew did the same, their bioluminescence flaring in distress. One of the bipeds stepped forward, encased in what appeared to be a flexible transparent suit. It spoke, its voice now unfiltered by communication systems. Welcome aboard the Lexington, Captain Alaf. I'm Dr. Emily Sanders, xenobiologist. We've prepared a suitable environment for you and your crew. Please, follow me. Still in shock, Alu and his crew followed the strange being. As they moved through the ship, they couldn't help but gape at their surroundings. Corridors stretched for kilometers, filled with more of the bipedal creatures going about their business. Some wore uniforms, others were dressed in a bewildering array of colorful garments. They passed what looked like park areas, complete with trees and flowing water. They saw vast chambers filled with flying machines of all shapes and sizes. At one point, they even passed a window that seemed to look out onto an ocean. What is this place? Droop finally managed to ask. Dr. Sanders smiled, the expression strange on her alien face. This is the Terran spaceship Lexington, one of the largest vessels ever constructed by humanity. She's seen a lot of history, this old girl. As they entered a large, fluid-filled chamber clearly prepared for their arrival, Alu finally found his voice. The Lexington, again, you're not a military vessel, he asked, remembering the massive weapons he'd seen. Dr. Sanders's smile widened. Oh no, not anymore. The Lexington is a museum ship now. You've been rescued by a tour group, actually. Quite the exciting addition to their trip, I'd say. As the hull-up settled into the familiar comfort of the nutrient-rich fluid, they exchanged bewildered looks. A museum? A tour group? What kind of species turn planet-destroying superweapons into tourist attractions? Alaf realized that their rescue was just the beginning of what promised to be a very strange and enlightening experience. As Dr. Sanders began explaining the accommodations they prepared, Alaf couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these humans had in store for them. Alaf and his crew floated in the nutrient-rich fluid of their new accommodations, their bodies slowly relaxing from their earlier stress-induced contraction. Dr. Sanders stood on a platform at the edge of the tank, smiling at them through her transparent suit. How are you feeling? She asked, her voice coming through a translator that made her words ripple through the fluid in a way the Hubs could understand. We are recovering, Alu replied, his tendrils waving gently. Thank you for your assistance. But I must ask, what is a museum ship? Dr. Sanders's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. A museum ship is a vessel that's been preserved to educate people about history. The Lexington is one of the most famous examples. She fought in numerous battles and helped shape the course of human history. Now she serves as a floating museum, allowing people to learn about our past and experience a bit of what life was like during her active years. Alu and his crew exchanged glances, their bodies pulsing with curiosity. Your species has such a unique way of preserving your history, Alu said diplomatically. We would be honored to learn more about it while we await rescue. Dr. Sanders's smile widened. I'm sure the tour group would love to meet you. They've never encountered a species like yours before. The idea of being part of a tour was both intriguing and intimidating to the Hups, but they were eager to learn more about the beings who had saved them. As Dr. Sanders began to explain more about the ship's history, Alu couldn't help but feel a growing sense of awe. These humans, with their strange customs and even stranger ships, were clearly a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. And yet, they had chosen to use their power to preserve and share their history, rather than conquer or destroy. Alu's thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime, followed by a voice that echoed through the chamber. Attention, all visitors. The next tour will begin in 5 minutes. Please proceed to the nearest observation deck. Dr. Sanders chuckled. It looks like the tour is about to start. Would you and your crew like to join? Alu hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yes, we would. I think we have much to learn from your people, Dr. Sanders. As they followed her through the ship, Alu couldn't shake the feeling that their unexpected encounter with the Lexington and its human crew was only the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, a chapter filled with strange new worlds, ideas, and perhaps even friendships.